February 4th, 2026. Hello, I'm John Michael Chambers, and welcome back to the GFR, the Global Financial Reset, Surviving and Thriving the Transition. Joining me today in just a moment for the full hour is Will Barney and Bill Armour, and Juan O'Savin is in the house. We're very happy to have Juan joining us. All right, so we've got quite the program lined up. We've got a lot of questions I'd like to get answered for myself and mainly for the viewers here. Now, quick disclaimer before we begin. The information provided by me and my guests is for educational purposes only and is not to be considered as specific investment, tax, nor legal advice. You are encouraged to do your own research and consult your own financial, legal, and tax professionals. Now, I'll put a little caveat there. Having said that, I also encourage you to go to wealthcoachuniversity.com, click on the little blue tab that says Advisor Scorecard, and that'll serve you well. And then contact your legal professionals and tax advisors and financial advisors. All right. Quick statement before we bring on Juan O'Savin. They print money with no limit, out of thin air. No backing, no sacrifice, no skin in the game. We, on the other hand, trade time. We trade our energy, our life's energy, from the cradle to the grave. We trade our entire life for it. This isn't an economy. It's an extraction system. Debt is the leash. Inflation is the tax. Ignorance is the cage. The biggest scam isn't money. It's making us believe that this is normal. This is not normal. It's insanity. And we are all enrolled in the program. The system is upside down, and it is being exposed, and it is failing. A new rail is being built. Justice will be served, and a new standard is forming. My fellow Americans, help is on the way, and the best is yet to come. All right, what I'd like to do right now, before we bring our other guests on, joining us live from the Heights in a clean city is Mr. Juan O'Savin. Juan, thanks for joining us. How you doing, sir?
Hey, great, John.
Thank you for being here. I usually have an introduction prepared for Juan when I do the one-off shows with Juan. I don't have that here. Pardon me, because the man does deserve a proper introduction. But everyone following this broadcast knows Juan O'Savin, and we'll just suffice it to say he is an international treasure. And thanks for being here, Juan. You know, there's a lot going on in the economy. You certainly know quite a bit about it, having done some extraordinary work back in the Reagan years. Concerning currencies. What is happening so that the average person can understand behind the proverbial Wizard of Oz's curtain with these massive moves, both up and down, in the silver and gold markets? On a hunch, the central bank has something to do with it. Take it away, Juan. Let's break this down for our audience.
Well, you had, I said to your audience previously that the resistance would be at 90 and again at 120. Hit it right on the head. I mentioned, I think with your audience and certainly with some other audiences, the fact that there had been these banking internal documents, which I had viewed, related to a couple of the large banks back from December, where they had determined that silver by the end of the year, sometime after the end of the third quarter, would be somewhere around 420 in one of the documents. And in another bank, smaller, they speculated it could go as high as 1100. That was a worst case scenario. The best case scenario was something around 420, 421. And that the fight over the next many months was going to be to slow the rate of increase in the value of silver while the banks were clearing their positions. They have taken speculative positions to try to tamp down the price of silver artificially and introduce paper silver, if you will. And that part of the concern is that President Trump had been directing the investigative entities within the banking system to let everybody know that an accounting is forthcoming concerning, their positions. And you have to picture, uh, they have these positions with paper silver that they then, in a stress test, show as being a solid asset that allows them to loan out vast amounts of money against this solid asset. Well, it's just paper. And with the rising price of physical silver, it was a threat to their positions. So the internal documents were essentially the legal teams advising management that the regulators are coming. And if they don't want to be forced to liquidate their paper positions at huge losses that threatened ultimately to destroy some of the biggest banks in the world, that they had to unwind these positions. And certainly, as we saw on the last business day before the end of February, that free fall in silver was not normal market conditions. That was an engineered crash to protect a very elite crowd within the banking community. Somewhere down the road, there will be heads that will roll related to that. It's probably a couple of years. And it's not totally wrong. I can hear people, but I want justice now. Okay, well, I get it. But here's the problem. Even in the midst of this huge reset within the global banking business monetary system, everybody in this audience is still able to go buy gas. They're still able to go to the grocery store and transact, go to a bank machine. As I've said, it's the most dangerous part of this whole process is maintaining hull speed for steerage. There's a certain speed below which, if you fall as a ship, you no longer maintaining enough forward momentum to steer the ship. And you can turn the wheel all you want, the rudder runs around, but it's not gliding through the water. And so there's nothing going past the rudder to turn it left or right or like that. You're just at the whim and will of the currents and the winds. And we're in a storm, and the storm isn't anywhere near as bad as it's going to get. People keep talking about, yeah, we're at the edge of the storm, but we're not in the worst of it by far. So in the midst of all of this, there is a responsibility in the course of resetting America and the world to maintain some type of flow and order in this transition period so that we don't kill millions, literally, with commerce not occurring, businesses not opening up. And if you unravel it too far, the ability to put it back together goes away from you. And so while we have, for example, civil unrest on the immigration issue, America hasn't fallen into civil war, and that's the real threat. If you remember, I've told this audience and other audiences previously that one of the little snippets within the J6 testimony, while Nancy Pelosi was holding them at the House, is when it was disclosed that after meeting with his personal advisors, I call them Job's advisors, who met with President Trump at the White House December 18th of 2020, Mike Flynn, his brother Joe, Patrick Byrne, Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, others. And the president agreed to let Sidney Powell write up what would be an insurrection document that he could sign like Lincoln did. Reluctantly agreed to let them at least drop a document for him to examine. There isn't one that's on the shelf. Here's the insurrection document, sign it. he agreed to let her put that together for him at the White House and then for review. But overnight, in the early morning hours on December 19th, in the J6 testimony, it came out that President Trump had a meeting with generals at the White House who advised him that in gaming out what would happen if he signed an Insurrection Act document, because he wasn't getting, these people were going to certify an election where there was foreign interference and everybody knew it, without the benefit of any of that disclosure going to the president or to Homeland Security. They were withholding the information from him that we now know there was foreign interference in the election in 2020. Other nations picked our president for us, and our Congress went along with it and put him into office, knowing full well that he was a fraud, that the election had been frauded by foreign countries in an act of war. What they advised the president was, even though, it would be right, an Insurrection Act would be called for, the problem was the country, if he signed it, by degrees would fall into civil war with open conflict between states by late spring, early summer, and that the nation would come off the rails and come apart in civil war. And that in this modern era, that was not a survivable thing. That the destruction to the infrastructure of the country and to the relationships, business relationships, etc., would be such that America as we know it would most likely not survive. And these globalista would prevail. They would win because they would step in, pick the bones of America after we'd internally self-destructed. So he didn't sign an Insurrection Act. In fact, no document was created by Sidney Powell at that time. Her White House pass was denied. Now you look at the financial realm and the same issues exist. In the course of resetting our financial systems and moving monetary printing authority back to the Treasury and tying it to gold and silver minted coin, and away from the Federal Reserve, there's a process that has to be in effect. And it's shifting. I was walking in one of the saunas yesterday, and it's got a nice textured marble going in and out of the hot tub and like that. I'm pretty spry, but I'm not a spring chicken. And so I had to be pretty careful as I moved my weight from one side to the other. I didn't want to take a chance and slip and fall. And everything around you is rock, marble. You hit something, you're probably going to break something. So I was very careful as I shifted my weight and walked and got out of there. And you never know if somebody has a little soap around or something slippery. I don't want to slip and fall and get hurt. Well, it's the same thing in this financial situation as we move from one system to the other and move our weight from one way of having things to another. There's a process here and a bit of caution to make sure that we're sure-footed as we go. It makes perfect sense, and that's exactly what's in play. Now, these players did a little scam, rapidly brought the price down artificially, and then miraculously, okay, key financial positions were liquidated at the exact bottom when silver went down into the mid 70s. That'll all be discovered. We'll find out about it later. And there's already been action being taken to not allow that to happen the next time. Silver has come up. Foreign markets, especially Asia, maintained a much higher price and didn't come down with this because the true street value of physical silver is still up there, even now, up over 110 U.S. dollars, Federal Reserve dollars. You can look at the numbers on the markets and the CMA and like that, but physical, actual transactions are well above that, and nobody's letting their silver go, their real silver go at those numbers, just paper silver and positions being liquidated, dots and tittles on a computer screen, legal authorities. So with that in mind, with price discovery now in play for silver, where does it ultimately end up? I think the internal documents by the largest silver holder in the banking system, which I had the opportunity to observe as they were being passed around, where they see silver by the end of the year at 420. I think that's accurate, and that was the best case scenario. It could be much higher. Other documents I saw put silver up, over 1,000, near 1,100. I think those are wrong. I think by the end of the third quarter that we're probably somewhere in the 280 to 300 range. But we'll just have to see what price discovery does. Um, uh, it could very well be lower than that with all the machinations going on, but I don't think it's you know under 100. I think it's bare ass minimum somewhere up near 210, and more likely up 280 or 90 as we get into the end of the third quarter and begin the fourth quarter. That's radically higher than it is now. It will also free up silver for industrial purposes. Now, one other thing that people have to think about is that right at this moment, this exact weekend, you have the Super Bowl happening on Sunday, February 8th. It will be telecast in every single country in the world. That's the first time in history. And then immediately thereafter, some of the disclosures, some of the angst is going to be flushed out into the system by design. The team around Trump has done all of their groundwork to prepare for the main attack related to elections, which is the most important thing Trump has on his agenda. More important than anything else during his entire time in public office will be returning honest elections to America, to get the leaders into office that are of the people, by the people, and for the people. That paves the way for other countries around the world to then get honest elections also. For example, here in Japan, I think the lag time before they are comfortable to match America within their election system and begin resetting who's in power and how they got there. Probably about 3 years. They need to see that it takes root in America, it's secure. We're the demonstration project for the rest of the world. And then, even after Trump is no longer in office, the tenor and tone and direction will have been cast, and other countries will follow. The people that we have physically in the U.S. testifying before grand juries right now about the election frauds from 2020 said that they stole the election here in America, plus 71 other countries around the world. All of those countries are places that we are going to go and help to get honest elections as a result of what we do in America over the next many months. And lastly, how will President Trump do that? An executive order alone is not enough. For example, the 107th executive order that Trump signed during his current time in office was March 25th of 2025. Signed at 1:07 in the afternoon, by the way. And that executive order directed all of the states and counties around America to clean up their voter rolls and remove anybody as a voter who had duplicate votes, their address wasn't correct, they were voting in, say, multiple states, or dead people voting, lots of voter rolls with people 300 years old voting. Seriously? So how many of those states and counties actually corrected their voter rolls based on the executive order by Trump last year, which was 180 days to comply and clean up their voter rolls? Virtually none. Zero. They said, well, we don't have a budget for it. Well, the budget of a county clerk's office is to do just exactly that. Of course, they have a budget for it. It's already in place. For the technical side is, now we already did it. It's good. Well, they didn't. We go in and look at it, and Eric, which is a voter roll cleanup system, wasn't cleaning anything at all up. But they say, well, we hired them, and that's their job, and so we've met the letter of the law for them, the executive order. Well, it's really not true. So an executive order by itself isn't enough. We've even seen that a federal pardon from President Trump didn't free Tina Peters because the states are in denial of federal authority. They're the ones that are the insurrectionists. They're the ones that are seditious, undermining the authority of the federal government. So what's the solution? President Trump, at the same time he signs the executive order that's coming, in fact, my team put together the proposed version of the executive order. We've been told that at least 80%, more like 90 or 95% of what we put together, a 17-page proposal, which is available online. People will be able to compare it after the fact, see how well we did. That executive order, 17-page executive order proposal we have, is the basis for what President Trump will sign. And at the very outset in that executive order proposal, as the first order of business, is that the president must declare a national emergency related to voting. That national emergency brings in military authority. It overrides all the courtrooms in the country because a national emergency exists. We've been attacked by foreign countries within our vote, which is an act of war, equivalent to a weapon of mass destruction, a nuclear weapon, because it has the ability to kill and destroy, which in fact, during the Biden administration, millions died because of a war in Ukraine that President Trump would never have allowed to begin, and other places also. So with that in mind, a national emergency exists. President Trump will declare that. And when he does, it's going to send a shot across the bow to all those who have gotten into office through frauds in the elections. And both Democrat and Republican rhinos. By the way, the worst state for rhinos in the United States right now is Utah. The most insane operations related to elections and primaries, that's what's going on in Utah. Absolutely indefensible. The courts in Utah and the legal system there, totally indefensible. Anybody that thinks that Utah isn't front and center in the crosshairs with what the administration's going to do, watch. As it should be. Utah is going to get a front row seat in the cleanup and actual arrests for criminality. And many of those are going to be Republicans. So this isn't just a Democrat issue. However, nationally, across the board, it's primarily a Democrat issue. And with all of that in mind, we're about to see something amazing happen, because after the Super Bowl, I think the president and other operations have telegraphed repeatedly that the intent is to, bring on a bigger show to the world than ever you saw with the Super Bowl. And even the broadcast systems, et cetera, being able to broadcast worldwide. Yeah, it's almost a test for what's about to happen. Enjoy the show.
Wow. Thank you, Juan. You've unpacked so much there. I've got a notepad with some follow-up clarifications and questions. First off, thank you. Number one, when do you anticipate the national emergency being declared uh, concerning elections? Is there a time frame that we might expect that to see that?
Well, President Trump said about 2 months ago during a interview concerning Ukraine, he was asked a question that was out of sequence about the elections, and he went ahead and took the question. And then he answered it in quite a bit of detail, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to be signing this executive order in a few days." Okay, now that was 2 months ago. One of Trump's tactics is to race up to the border of a situation and then stop. And to anybody watching, it looks like he's just going to run right through the crowd or something and bowl them all down. But it is a kind of a common tactic for him to race up to a situation, then stop and see the reaction of the opponents. Epstein's another example of that. And so he said that he was about to sign this in days, but the attorneys were looking at this and vetting stuff out, which is exactly, we knew that true. Now, we had the executive order ready, the proposed version a year ago. There was an earlier version, which was crap. And the reason why I asked my team to put something together. It's been there sitting. I don't think there's anything there that even my folks reviewed it even just a few days ago that we think should be changed, but we'll just have to wait and see what the attorneys say. And we know the attorneys that are looking at it and, what it is that what their concerns are about methodologies. With that in mind, the president isn't giving any hints. And one of the things the president has gone to great pains to do is to point out to everyone, even watching around him in his inner circle. He had a thing where he was speaking to a bunch of military cadets, and he spoke with them off stage, young kids, before he went out on the stage. One of the questions he asked him, he says, how many people do you think know exactly what I'm going to say when I walk out on that stage right now? And they were guessing, 5, 10, 50, has he cleared his speech? Has he made whatever? And he says, only one, me. And so he may get advised, he may get told, but at the end of the day, he's following a schedule that he is making those final decisions on. And I'm reminded, by the way, President Reagan was strongly advised that he could not go to the wall in Germany and say what he wanted to say. He wrote his speech out, and the speech writers rejected it, said, you can't say it. The policy writers rejected it, said, you can't say that, tear down that wall. That's horrible. So President Reagan, as he was in the presidential limousine driving to the wall, crossed out what his own advisors had told him and written into the speech for him, and wrote right on there, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall, at exactly the point in the speech he wanted to say it. And he didn't care. When he said that, nobody else present knew that he was going to go ahead and do that. He alone knew it. And if you think of a defining moment in all of the things we remember about President Reagan, that was that defining moment. Mike, his son, and I were very, very close. And we talked about that in the weeks before he passed away the other day. Defining moments and thinking about his own life, and defining moments, that he and I thought were special. In President Trump's history as president, I think that defining moment is yet ahead, and it will relate to these two subject matters: returning honest elections to America, and by extension, the whole world. How much greater of a legacy can you imagine? Honest elections. And then the thing that goes with that, honest money. And to remove this enslaving capability of our would-be slave masters, owners, and controllers, these demonic serving Baal worshippers who have sought specifically to take control of the world through dishonest elections and dishonest money. By the way, just so everybody here knows, I've mentioned on a couple of other broadcasts, but I think it bears repeating. Please, everybody go do a search engine look at screaming Pope tattoos. And it depicts a Pope behind bars, golden bars, by the way, and being tortured. The imagery is that, that these demon worshippers, these Satan worshippers, within the control of the elections, a number of them that are key people have that tattoo because they're part of a club that they enslave the world to do their good and torment it by taking over the elections. That's their oath. And so they aren't just people wanting power for power's sake, they're literally a club of Baal or Satan worshipers who worked their way to take control of elections around the world. And many of them have this tattoo, and as a mark of entry for this. I think that'll come out over time. It'll be very shocking. But you have a number of the leaders of these various things that are in that same club. Hillary, for example. We just saw the memo in some of the Epstein release concerning the elections in Haiti, where Bill Clinton was assisting in getting Smartmatic vote systems into Haiti for their elections, which are by extension the predecessor to Dominion and part of all that, in this push that occurred during the Obama years to get these vote machines into elections all over the world. So,
So there you have it, folks. Screaming Pope tattoos. We're going to go look at that. I have a couple of other things I want to follow up on, and we've got two other guests. If you could stick around, one, to chat with them a bit before you go. But we have this massive issue with elections front and center now, and soon to be even more front and center. We have the Epstein second major release, and this one's a major one, as we can see on social media. With these two events, coupled with the fact that the banks are panicking based on what you said earlier with the moves they're making on paper on trading of gold and silver, with these three big events, particularly Epstein and the elections, could we, the American people, expect or brace for some incoming attacks, false flags of sorts? Because it's a tit for tat in this war, and this is a big tit and tat. Any advice there before I get into some economic follow-up questions?
well, beyond the banks and things they can do internally within bank trades and communications transactions, what would be ways they could slow down this reckoning between the U.S. Treasury specifically and the authorities and control that President Trump is bringing to play in that arena specifically, and the international reserve system led by the Federal Reserve here in the U.S. What plays might assist them in slowing down this process or derailing it? Certainly the threat Trump personally, individually, against his life and health, but again, anything that could derail anywhere in the world, any major center of commerce in the world. It's not just, say, New York, but right here where I'm at in Tokyo. A lot of people don't realize this. The Japanese economy is the closest economy on planet Earth to the U.S. economy. In fact, we're so close that the Federal Reserve or the um, uh, oh, banking backup, FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, backs up Japanese banks besides U.S. banks. If Japanese banks run into an economic hurdle of some sort and have to close banks, our U.S. FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, defends them here just as much as it does the U.S. A lot of people think it's England that's our closest ally on the banking like that. That's where the, city of London's located and all the banking stuff there in the city of London. But it's really right here in Tokyo. And when we did the attack on the ruble in Russia, we did it through the German Deutschmark and an operation there out of Germany and right here across Asia, but with the lily pad being Japan. And also into South America. The largest Japanese population on planet Earth outside of Japan proper is in Brazil. And the connection between the banks here in Japan and the banks in Brazil is very close. And so the Brazilian bola was used also in that to, fight World War III. We fought World War III, the Cold War, and the Soviet Union lost. It doesn't exist anymore. This moment that we're in is World War IV, in my opinion. And the battle here, we will be blessed if it doesn't become kinetic with bullets. In the period with Reagan, it wasn't fought with nuclear weapons. We're endeavoring to get through this time also without the escalation to nuclear weapons. However, just to put context here, Putin said recently, for anybody that thinks that they're unable to defend themselves or unwilling to, take any city in the world, put every possible technology and defensive weapon around that city, and then I will push a button and destroy that city, and none of the technology that you want to use will stop us. The particular missile system he was talking about goes over a city, comes in vertically, Mach 8, and comes from the edge of space to the surface in, seconds. And there's no, even with our laser systems like that, ability to track and stop. You're not going to stop it. We're at a impasse on many things. So if we're going to get agreement, compliance, the ability to save the world from this next major conflict, we're going to have to work with Russia through this and not have an attitude like we're just going to go blow them to smithereens if we don't like what's going on. And the globalista who who have been trying to get America into a war, they would succeed if they got Russia and the U.S. to, beat each other's brains in. In fact, Russia's our natural ally as Americans, and people need to remember that. We have a need to resolve this other than via nuclear war, which would be World War IV. And, just like Russia can send something that we can't defend against, we got stuff we can send against them or any other place in the world, and they don't have defenses against it. So, we got pretty amazing stuff. At a lesser level, are false flags possible that could be very destructive that other people have the ability to wield? Yes, that is a danger. So, we're at a very dangerous moment. I think immediately after the Super Bowl, the next 90, 120 days are going to be one for the history books because it'll be one blow after another. Epstein's the shot across the bow, and there'll be tit for tat as we expose a lot of these evil, bad people. One of the key things that came about, by the way, just reinforcing what I said about these people being Satan worshipers, the money accounts that Epstein used, he called them Baal accounts. That was the name for those accounts. Baal, as in devil worship, okay, from biblical sense. Just think about that.
Wow, thank you, Juan. I want to brace for impact, folks. Pray, plan, and prepare. I want to go back to a couple of quick questions on the economic aspect. You're in Tokyo. A year and a half or so ago, you and I were speaking off camera, and then you certainly put it on camera with me and many others that a bond collapse is coming beyond the municipal bonds. And it's my understanding that Japan is the largest, if not close to it, uh, owner of our debt, our treasuries. What's happening with regards to Japan and the sell-off, if you will, of the U.S. Treasury holdings that they have? Is that happening? Will that escalate? And what impact will that have on the dollar and gold and silver?
Well, Japan's economy is so intricately tied to the U.S. economy that they're almost indiscernibly uh, connected in many, many ways, other than the politics. And so there's a lot of, uh, they have to be very careful how they move, and it would affect the U.S. economy and vice versa. Because Japan here is this firewall against China and the concerns of stability across the rest of Asia and South Korea. Uh, so they're a bulwark that we need. And certainly the threat to the economic system with these fraudulent bonds is almost incalculable. Um, those school district bonds, road and water district bonds, the frauds in there are literally almost incomprehensible against property owners, etc. Uh, that's going to get addressed. New York, Chicago, all of California are going to be hit so hard in all of this that it's going to be a tough one to get through. But there is some routes forward to ease the pain, if you will. And with a lot of what President Trump will take back from these globalist operations, it will come into not just help individual taxpayers in America, but to cancel out some of these public debts and neutralize them. And it's a lot of work. It's not going to be all done in a day. I think realistically, it will take 20 to 30 years to work through most of those problems. And even then, we might be dealing with aspects of it for another 20 beyond that. So
Wow.
we'll get a vast majority of them relatively quickly. Again, the business of America is business. That's what Reagan said. Same thing applies here in Japan. The business of Japan is business, as much or more so as any place, any people on planet Earth. That's why we work so well together. It's amazing we ever fought a war. Our interests are so intricately tied together at this point. Um, and so when you consider that, working through the bond issue together is going to be massively important. The other thing that's critically important, by the way, when we talk about subject matter that nobody's thinking about tied to Japan, Greenland. Why is Greenland so important to Japan? Because of the North Sea Passage. Okay, the shortcut to the markets in Europe and the energy coming out of Europe. Um, Japan gains as much as any country in the world from an opening of the North Sea and past Greenland and like that. And resources. Japan is, they don't have a lot of raw resources, mineralization, etc. here, so they have to send out for it and do contracts for it. Japan is actually perfectly positioned in a number of industries to help build the infrastructure and then get much of the materials that would come out of Greenland for their economy here. And by the way, Japan had very close relations with Denmark, ambassadorial relations for a very long time. And that will come back to the fore. They will be a needed partner with the U.S. in the work that's done going in and taking control of Greenland as a strategic location to cancel out Russian ambitions in that part of the world and Chinese ambitions. So Japan is just extremely critical to this whole operation. Everything Trump has a very, very intricate tie to Japan. That's why we did the beautiful imagery. I did the Japanese edition of Kid by the Side of the Road. It's been very popular over here. And one of our coins has Melania on it in her kimono. And Japan's very close to everything America in what's about to happen.
Thank you, Juan. I didn't know the book was translated into Japanese. That's good news. Um, Kid by the Side of the Road. Everybody, if you haven't picked that up by now, you want to pick that up. What's the site again, Juan? Is it Gumroad, Gum, gumroad.com?
Allpatriots.gumroad.com and then thejennifermack.com. You got to put the before Jennifer Mack, MAC. Otherwise, you get some of the other Hollywood stars. Jen's a Hollywood star of her own, but you got to put the in there first. So. And she's got a lot of other stuff there
Understood.
too.
Thank you.
So a lot of fun.
Juan, I want to ask you one more question, and then I've got two gentlemen in our proverbial digital green room, Bill Armour and Will Barney. I'd like them to join us in a moment. I've got some questions to ask them. You're welcome to stick around for the
Yeah.
roundtable if you can. If not, okay, good. But before I bring them on, I have one last question, then we'll bring on Bill Armour and Will Barney. Is the month of March, it's been my understanding from the guests that I interview and some homework I've done that a lot of these banks, the big five, let's say, the central banks, contracts on these future overpriced situation thing coming due as March progresses. So let's say through the month of March, which could be more tens and tens of billions of dollars that they have to find. And they find it, as I understand, by going to the Fed's window and borrowing the money. With that being said, can we expect I know there's a lot of things affecting the dollar positively and negatively because this is such a dynamic currency war right now. But what is your response to the banks debacle coming through March, knowing they got to go borrow the money, which drives the dollar down, plus Japan selling off some treasuries and other factors? What do you expect to happen to the U.S. dollar this year and perhaps a little bit beyond that?
Well, for example, here in Japan, the yen has fallen 40% against the dollar in the last couple of years. So one of the people that I had dinner with last night was lamenting the fact that his spending power, because he agreed to get paid in yen when he came here as an American, has gone down radically, for his bills back home. And that he needed to renegotiate this. And I said, nah, don't do anything for the time being. because President Trump's position is that he wants a weaker dollar, not a broken dollar. All the difference in the world, monstrous difference. He wants a weaker dollar so that we can do more trade, that we're in a better position to do trade with some of these other countries. And the Federal Reserve, in order to clear a lot of the debt that it has and like that from these member banks, it needs to be pretty free at the payment window to keep and maintain a flow. And for that reason, by the way, I expect that the stock market will continue to go up, not because it's doing that great this year or even next necessarily in business, but because there's more money flowing and the value of the money is less. And the buildings, the airplanes, the cars, the factories, the workers, they all represent a type of gold or silver bar. They're tangible, they're real. And so those real assets within the corporate system will have greater value against a weaker dollar. That said, in order to do the full reset, you need gold. And I think that the Treasury people that I've talked to have been pretty clear. They want gold revalued roughly 20,000. I think the real number ends up being like 21,665. I think is 1,665 on gold, and then silver is a significant number, well over 1,000 in that equation. And so, with that in mind, for example, getting positions in silver, remember the spot price doesn't reflect physical silver. Physical silver left the spot market a long time ago and is priced much higher than spot is and will continue to do so. So even buying silver right now, you're getting a golden moment. Take advantage of it. And gold too, but I think the silver's the better bet personally. With that in mind, people looking for a collapse of the dollar, it's all kind of relative. The dollar, the Federal Reserve note, isn't going anywhere for the time being. We're just shifting the emphasis over to a Treasury certificate. And that reflects back to President Kennedy. I've talked about other places, but some people may not have heard of this before, so give me 2 minutes to do the spiel. President Kennedy attacked the Federal Reserve System, the bankers. And the way that he did it is he had the Treasury, the U.S. Treasury, issue a silver certificate. That was a dollar, but it was a Treasury dollar, not a Federal Reserve dollar. And as a Treasury dollar, the certificate had a number. That number was tied to a pallet or a vault, if you will, of silver. And it had a specific value assigned to it in dollars as the silver in that vault. Then he allowed only the exact number of silver certificates, dollars, to be circulated as there was silver physically in that vault or room. Those silver certificates were a direct attack on the Federal Reserve System. Had Kennedy began a second term, he was going to add to the silver certificates a gold certificate. And it's literally a receipt of ownership for gold or silver in the vault that's numbered, that's tagged, that you can't print any more than what that number is that's there based on the value of silver or gold that was assigned to it by the Treasury at that time. So it had solid real value versus a Federal Reserve note. It would have ultimately destroyed the Federal Reserve note. And in fact, what happened during Nixon's period, where the French were coming in and they had a right to cash in dollars for gold, That was unique as opposed to the American citizen who couldn't do the same thing, or other people, because the way those dollars were printed, and Nixon closed the gold window. Kennedy intended to open that window to the American citizen, and we were blocked. What President Trump intends to do, he intends, and his entire presidency has been based on this idea, that where Kennedy was thwarted in moving forward to bring back ownership of the country, if you will, to the American people, and that was stolen with his assassination. Trump is here to restore and continue in those directions, and within monetary policy, precisely going to Treasury and away from Federal Reserve, a private banking organization, no more federal than Federal Express, private club, and you don't belong to it. So Trump will continue on that, and not just do the silver certificates, he'll do gold certificates also. It'll be for real silver. And then, to the extent that we don't have it physically minted, he will add a component, a time factor for redemption while we extract the gold and silver from mines across America and contracts across the world to return gold and silver into the vaults of the Treasury. And as it becomes numbered, you'll be able to exchange your promissory notes, essentially a loan against time of redemption for those materials. People that want to redeem instantly will take a haircut. But as we get back on our feet as a country and sort these things out, the people that are willing to wait that actually need it for retirement and other things will do just fine. And if they don't need it even then, they'll continue to gain interest and value at significant rates that will make it beneficial to leave those monies on deposit in the Treasury for a period of time.
Thank you, Juan. I've got one more question I'd like to ask of you. And then, folks listening, we're going to bring Bill Armour and Will Barney in just after this very question for a roundtable discussion with Juan O'Savin. Thanks for sticking around, Juan. This is an interesting question. I'm going to set it up first to get our audience attention in the zone. And the issue is that we've had retired Lieutenant Colonel Tom Lennox on a previous broadcast, a very popular and very powerful episode on the trading of our birth certificate and other related issues of repatriation of wealth and so forth and so on. Having laid that down as the foundation here, we've discussed maritime law versus common law, capital letters as an entity
well, the
versus
term,
the actual
by the way,
individual.
is admiralty
Yes,
law.
go ahead.
We say maritime
Admiralty,
admiralty
thank
law
you.
is the proper term. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Maritime admiralty law. Okay, so here's the question. We have common law, we have maritime admiralty law. Some people have removed themselves as being identified under admiralty law under the capital letters and have resorted to being a sovereign under their name and their birth as a human being. Okay, so having said that, the question is this. Those that are operating outside of maritime admiralty law starting to get a lot of questions about this. And the question is this. When the repatriation of wealth, and that's for another whole program to delve into, comes back to we the people from the trading of the birth certificate and other fraudulent things that have been done that we're starting to learn about. Those that have already stepped out of the maritime admiralty law system, when that repatriation of wealth comes back to us, will those people be eligible for such repatriation if they're not part of the maritime admiralty law system?
Yes, because all U.S. citizens have been stolen from and ripped off. And so it will be based on your citizenship. Much of what people want to get rectified is these cooked systems, which everybody was funneled into, cattle herded into. But if you try to fix these problems within those systems. They were corrupt and crooked from the beginning. And it would not be fair. People that played the game may be owed, you know, I the amount that I paid in taxes and Social Security, I was fully funded in my Social Security before I turned 30 years old. Okay, from all the payments, but I could never make one penny more upon completing, where I could start withdrawing Social Security benefits after that period of time. Yet I was required to continue paying into the Social Security system. Um, Huge, vast, unbelievable amounts of money. I mean, it was painful, okay, to know that you're paying it in. It's huge, but nothing you can do about it. You're not getting it all back. Um,
Mhm.
and I'm sure that's what he's thinking maybe he can get back besides maybe, these huge tax payments and things like that. The reality is that you'd be rewarding those that played the game against others that, just didn't take advantage of it in that way. So there'll be some little bit of recompense for certain of the people that maybe had certain positions that were higher, but the majority of that's going to be made like a sovereign wealth fund for all of the citizens, and some direct payments, a lot of it into stabilize society in a broader sense, as sovereign wealth funds often do, that you can withdraw loans against for education and business and things like that, and to help offset the corruption within the bond markets that they're well positioned to destroy a lot of cities in America, communities in America. And so there'll be real work that has to be done to help solve some of that. Other places that were attacked, you know, the fires in California and 100 other locations, including Maui. Places like that are going to need special assistance. And not just in America, but across the world. Those wealth funds will take a very long time to properly administer and fold out. Don't expect it to be done in days or weeks, or it would be wrong and sloppy and not work right anyway. Think of it longer term to, Rome wasn't built in a day. And a lot of times people get a huge influx of wealth through an inheritance or something like that. And it's a failure oftentimes of the previous generation not to pass the baton while they're alive to help administer moving into that next phase for young people receiving some fortune, some inheritance. It's better to do it while you're alive because you have greater leverage and influence in passing that off so that it's not such a shock. And the people have had enough time to weigh through options in what they're going to do and work it through. They tend to keep the wealth intergenerationally when you move it over a longer period of time and while the person's still here to pass along, that kind of knowledge. It's going to be same here with this sovereign wealth fund. We will have a tremendous amount come in. Some of it will take some time to sift through and sort out. Do we sell some of these lands? Do we lease some of these lands and save an actual potential sale for a later generation? Those are discussions that will happen after Trump is long gone. We're going to
Mhm.
get through a phase right now of this, but much of the hardest of the work is yet ahead. He won't be here for all of that. He won't be directly involved in some of those conversations. We need to take advantage of his wise counsel and others to come to get through this next moment, because just getting the wealth back is only a portion of the problem. Being able to reinvest in America and our allies across the world to get the right outcome, that's another story completely. So,
Yes, thank you. Incredible times. What's happening? Just to put the lid on the jar. So, for the individuals that have stepped out of the Maritime Admiralty operation, when the revaluation and currency conversion takes place, if you're again already out of that system, they are still going to be eligible by and large, even though
well,
the conversions have
they'll be
taken place. Money's owed. Yes, go ahead.
they'll get some advantage from essentially a national sovereign wealth fund. But if they're looking for repayment of, all their investments in taxes, Social Security, everything else, there may be some there, but it won't ever be satisfactory to them. And it's
Mm,
untangling a knot that you're probably asking for something that just God Himself would be challenged to do it in a way that everybody would agree is fair, right? Take a deep breath. Be thankful that we'll get our liberty back, honest elections. And, years ago, way back when I was young, I knew a gentleman, their house had burned down. They didn't have insurance, everything was gone. And, but he and the wife and kids were fine. And he had a very valuable piece of property, just fantastic. But his attitude was they were saved with their life. They lost everything. There wasn't even anything left of the house, memories, etc. It all had to be just bulldozed and carted away, and they had a huge house. He rebuilt all of it and did just fine. Took him about 15 years to pull it all back together again, but he had his health and he had his family, and everything else was secondary. We get through what's coming here as a country. Be thankful for whatever you got. And we're going to put this whole thing back together again, because we still have our wits about us. We still have the most important things, our freedom. And we're going to get it all back. And we're going to put the monsters in boxes and put them on
yes.
display for the rest of our lives. Uh, that by itself is a gift within this generation, because other generations before us, I know many of the people that fought hard and they didn't get to see this moment in time. I would not
Yeah.
sully this moment by whimpering because I didn't get some piece of the pie when they lost everything their life included
Mhm.
in the fight and never got to see this moment. Be thankful for whatever we got. And if you had the wisdom, the understanding, the gumption to opt out of a crooked system somehow and own yourself for a few years, that's its own reward. It may not be a perfect reward, but the history's on your side. Take a deep breath. You saw it before others did. Others are going to fight through and they're going to fuss and whine. The future is what we have. And we didn't have that the way these monsters had it planned. They wanted to wipe out 13 out of 14 people alive today were intended to be dead. That was their plan. And we're still here. And these Baal worshipers, these monsters, these baby rapers, they're the ones that are in the sights now. The hunters become the hunted. That's its own satisfaction that you get to be alive and witness it and be part of it. Yeah, it's a reward all by itself. Thank God.
So well said. Thank you, Juan. I don't know if you've met my two guests, but I'd like to bring on to my producer simultaneously. We have Will Barney and Bill Armour. Will Barney, retired banker, joining us, and Bill Armour, an expert in precious metals. Um, if we can go 4 panel. We probably weren't prepared for that. There it is. Thank you very much to my producer. Thank you. We've got Will Barney and Bill Armour. Say hello to 107.
Hey, good to see
Hey
you.
guys.
Good to be on with you.
All right. Introductions made. You've been patiently listening to Juan provide a lot of important information for all of us. I want to continue the discussion. We'll begin with Will Barney. And gentlemen, we can raise any topics. This is an open round table to bring to the table what you'd like. I do have some scripted questions and things I'd like to get on the record. We'll begin with Will. We'll take it around the block here. The Clarity Act. Let's go there. A couple of days ago, the crypto and banking leaders met at the White House where they're voting on the issues. Can you, Will, briefly describe what is the Clarity Act and where do we stand presently right now with legislation regarding crypto?
Well, the Market Clarity Act is really about trying to put guardrails, rules of the road, if you will, about how blockchain's going to function. And more particularly, it's about protecting the consumer. We have a lot of protections in our law regarding the banking system that protects everybody that's got a bank account, but we really don't have those same protections on blockchain. So that's what this legislation is about. And there's a lot of arguments going back and forth about what they're going to allow, what they're not going to allow. But ultimately, we need to have the rules of the road because everybody's looking to tokenize all the major assets, even the stock market looking to tokenize. Well, you can't just let the public loose on that if you don't have rules of the road about how this needs to operate, and everybody is held accountable to that. So this is a very important piece of legislation. President Trump has told the Senate he wants it on his desk by the end of February. Will they get there? I don't know. We hope so. The Senate has had this bill since last July. So they've been kicking it around a long time. Okay. So let's hope that they get that finished. They received it the same time they got the Genius Bill. So, and we know that they passed that one right away. So that's vitally important because everybody's looking to blockchain to be a moment of clarity. And that this is interesting. They call it the Clarity Act, but it's about transparency in our financial transactions. As we get into blockchain and a distributed ledger system, what you're looking at is really some are calling it the trustless system, because the system itself can validate both parties to a smart contract. So you don't have to trust the guy on the other side. The system tells you whether he has the money to buy your thing or not. Okay. So it's not like you have to, just trust me, I'll get you the money. That goes away. It's pure validation all the way through. And I think the other thing that's positive is it's instant settlement, or fairly instant. In terms of seconds rather than days or minutes. I mean, I know I've been around banking, and so has Juan. The SWIFT system is anything but swift, and in fact, it's the opposite of SWIFT. It's hilarious how it operates. But the fact the Patriot Act, move any kind of money and move it in seconds and have it actually be cleared for both parties. That's what we're talking about. So really incredible things coming with that. I think what you will see in the future is as all assets start to move toward this idea of tokenization to make it easier to trade. If you have silver, if you have gold, if you have a house deed, whatever thing of value is on a token, look how easy it's going to be to trade with one another. So this legislation is vitally important as we look at our future and how we trade with one another.
Well said. Thank you, Will. Yeah, Cowboys and Indians, the days of Cowboys and Indians concerning crypto-related matters are going to be coming to an end, and thank goodness for that, because this is going to play a major role in currency itself and how things move, and as you said, trustlessness. I love that word. I love that. That is really going to make things quite better. Bill Armour, any comments on the crypto thing? And also, we'll come to Juan on this as well. And I want to throw in there, we'll start with Bill, we'll go back to Juan and Will if you want to comment on the scammers this might be an appropriate time to discuss that. Why is there legislation? Because there is none and there needs to be. One of the other elements coming down the totem pole of importance, but still important, are the endless scammers out there. Even some of the podcasters directing people to come join my QFS in my wallet. Anyway, Bill, any comments on what we're discussing here, and then we'll take it around the block.
Yeah, I mean, I'll leave crypto by and large to the two people that know more on crypto than I do. But what I will
Sure.
say is, yeah, I think this is very necessary. When we talk about crypto for a long time has been a Wild West, and you said cowboys and Indians, which I think is appropriate. And so finally making this more uniform, putting guardrails in place and things like that, and not overdoing it, but at least doing it so we have a common set of rules is very important whenever you're dealing with anything, especially long-term talking about asset-backed tokenization, things like that. We have to be speaking the same language and have the same rule set. So this is part of legislation that creates the infrastructure that allows us to have discussions down the road that are going to be much more important.
Thank you. Real quick question to Will. Then I want to go to Juan if Juan would like to weigh in on what we've addressed thus far. But quick question to Will. And the reason I'm raising this is I get a lot of questions on public timelines and a dedicated public email address I've given out. Can JQ Public, the American citizen, be in the QFS right now? A yes or no question.
QFS system is not available to the public at the present moment. Doesn't mean it's not operational. There's a lot of operations
Yes.
going on behind the scenes. We had our Treasury Secretary state today in a public statement that they are using the IRS system to help track down these fraudsters in Minnesota and California. So a lot of people complain. I mean, they're like, why haven't we got rid of all this? Why haven't got rid of the income tax and everything else? We're using their systems against them right now, folks. You need to just buckle up because we got to clear all this out. And sometimes it's painful, the whole process of legalese. Juan probably understands this, but the wheels of justice seems like they move slow, but they do grind fine. And we will get to a result with this, but we are going to have a little bit of patience with that process.
Thank you. One quick follow-up with you, Will, before we go to Juan, is one more extension of this, and then we got it on the record, and I can refer people to this specific section of the episode so we don't have to keep addressing it. One more follow-up to the scam aspect of this. We see all over social media, okay, you've already debunked it's operational, probably at many levels, but not for us to be invited in just yet. I get that. Now, they also say, do you have your wallet set up? Come, let me help you with your wallet, and then get you into the QFS. Any cautions or red flags with this advice from the public that's being put out there all over the place?
It's not available. Anybody that tells you you can get it, they're trying to get your information to scam you and hurt you in some way. So you need to stay away from that. There's a lot of scams going on. I hear people all the time getting. I heard of a guy the other day, 2 days ago, and he said that he got pulled into this QFS. Oh, I got to set up my QFS account. Within 24 hours, they had emptied out his digital blockchain wallet. He had given them too much information. So, and he was very upset by it, of course.
So the American people should just wait. This will obviously be an official announcement. We're not going to have to figure out how to get out of the old system into the new system. There'll be some directions coming from the top down. Juan, do you care to weigh in on any aspect of this crypto discussion? And I want to get into Bitcoin in a moment.
Well, part of the issue is a lot of this audience, you're forward thinkers. And so you're also early adopters. And that's why you've done pretty well at different times. And so that's also a weakness potentially that can be exploited because you're hoping to get in early, make the extra buck, be in a power position moving forward. And the scammers know that. So they play on those not just emotions, but features within your persona. and they're very good at it. Until you've been conned by a really good con man, you don't realize just how dangerous these people can be to you. So this is one of those moments where you have to slow down, cross the T's, dot the I's. If it's too good to be true, it very likely is. Within these major moves that have to happen, they won't be done in the background first, and then everybody else gets to find out. They're just not. It's not the way the system's set up. You're not that special. I have some stuff going on right now in the background in the banking community that probably just because of my history all the way back to the 80s, I have unique understanding and contacts in. And even there, we've all had to take deep breaths to make sure that we're, very comfortable that all the proper boxes have been checked. It's there's other places to dive in, make a buck, etc., and certainly to understand the technology involved potentially, but you know, uh, warning, warning, danger, danger, danger. I know of several people personally that have suffered brutally just in the last 6 months in losses in the crypto community, and these were very sophisticated players who had
Mm.
real understanding, and were just shocked that they got hit. Business people. Warning, warning, warning. Take a deep breath. This is an extra sensitive moment in this resetting moment. Buyer beware.
Thank you. Let's briefly talk. We're going to get into other subjects beyond crypto in a moment, certainly precious metals and a few other things before we wrap up our show. But people often ask, what about Bitcoin? Now we see Bitcoin and many cryptos are on a downward trend at the moment. But what are the Trumps doing? I guess we'll start with Juan. We'll go to Bill, Will, and Bill. If you gentlemen care to comment, what what are the Trumps doing? It seems that Eric Trump seems to be the public mouthpiece, if you will, for American Bitcoin. He's walked us through the warehouse of the mining and so forth and so on. What is American Bitcoin's objective? And is Bitcoin something we should be looking at or something we should be running away from? I personally am a little confused. I stay away from Bitcoin myself, but yet the Trumps are investing in it. Juan, we start with Juan? We'll go down the panel. Any comments on the Bitcoin issue and the Trumps?
Well, Bitcoin has a future. The super, super, super short answer, as quick as I can give it, is this. Bitcoin was a creation of DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Program. And you have to think about this. You're trying to anticipate the future. Are you anticipating 200 years, 100 years? A Star Trek future where you don't use cash? How do you denominate your wealth? What is wealth? But then is the 200 years from now future, does it have to be implemented in 20 years, 5 years, 30 years? The other component that has to be in there is, what was the threat? The threat that was facing the world and America specifically in that period, leading up to 9/11 and afterwards, the fraudulent Obama years, etc. Remember, when did Bitcoin come into being? In the lead up to 9/11, it was being formulated, gamed out within the DARPA community. It was anticipating some series of events that, had Hillary Clinton won, they would have destroyed the dollar, the physical paper dollar. They'd have done it with the pandemic being spread by, uh, paper money. They had in position across the world, and this is a hard one for people to get their minds around. I've discussed it on your show previously, John. They had in position 100,000 pallets with $100 million on each and every pallet. I personally have tracked 17,000 of those. Another 5,000 that I've got very solid, comfortable, data on that physically people that I personally trust have been in the room with them. That still is only about a quarter of everything that's out there. What were they going to do with that? That wasn't there to help the world. It was there to undermine the dollar, just as we undermined the ruble, not with counterfeit dollars, but with real dollars that were spread out in the black market system, not going through bank machines. If you're going to collapse a currency, one of the things that we knew and we established, we proved, you can't do it through the banking system. You have to do it in the black market. And we did that with the ruble. And that was the intent with the paper dollar, to undermine confidence in the dollar across the world, because it's a world circulated currency. With that in mind, whenever you're about to engineer a crisis as a globalist, you have the solution already in position, ready to play. And with Hillary as president, had she been allowed to become the president in 2017, as this globalist plan unfolded, you'd have had terrorist strikes, nuclear bomb in Seattle next to Seahawks Stadium. You'd have had a pandemic with money tainted. You'd have had a collapse of the dollar and the Western banking systems. And they'd have been there ready, a la 9/11 with the Patriot Act, all ready to go, been formulated for years, just needed the event to bring it to pass. You'd have had the crypto ready to bring into the world and bypass all of the existing safeties within government and finance and fund a globalist system. Now, does that make cryptos evil in and of themselves? No. There was a lot of work and planning and thought that went into it. We are going to go to a digital system. The question is it going to be fiat crypto, or is it going to be a blockchain that is merely a record-keeping system in the open with a distributed ledger tied to physical assets, whether it's within tokenization of property or constitutional money, which is dots and tittles on a computer screen, but tied intricately, precisely to physical gold and silver on deposit in the U.S. Treasury, constitutional money. And you just get a receipt within the distributed ledger system. That's the things that are ahead that have to be worked through, and that President Trump and the people around him will be working through. That is not stable thus far. It's not written in stone thus far, and there's a lot of work yet to be done. So for the moment, let's not get ahead of the game. Let's work sure-footedly. And for the moment, if you have physical gold and silver, you're probably in the best position so that as this dust settles, you can buy back in to the system, reinvest, but do it from a solid place after all of these scams and uncertainties are washed out of the system, which is the plan, to get the scammers and the scamming out of the system.
Thank you, Juan. Bill and or Will, anyone care to comment on the Bitcoin narrative and picking up where Juan left off? Just chime in.
I'll let you take this one, Will.
Well,
Okay.
the American Bitcoin thing is very interesting. Okay, let's take a look at that for a second, because the Trump brothers have put together this big data center to mine Bitcoin. So what is Bitcoin mining? Bitcoin requires a third-party verification on a transaction. Okay, that means you have two parties transacting, but you get a third party to verify that. Well, that's what the data center does. It's being the third party verification, and when it does that, it earns a fee. In other words, it mines Bitcoin. Okay, that's where the term comes from. So they're simply taking their ability to put together a server system and say, let's make money off the guys running this thing. There's no reason we can't. They debanked us. They did all this other stuff to us. Hey, let's use our own system. And I don't blame them for doing that. If you got the ability to put together your servers, you can make. Now, it doesn't mean everybody's got a server is going to make money doing this, but they're putting together a big enough system that they're becoming a massive validator, okay, on the system. So what's interesting about that is they're not playing the game. What I mean by that is it's not about whether the price goes up or the price comes down. They earn the fee regardless of who wins because they're just the validator in between. It's a brilliant strategy when you think about it. And so I just look at them as, look, the Trump brothers are entrepreneurs. They're being entrepreneurial. And I think it's fascinating. Yes. Now, if you look at the other stablecoin that they've introduced from Western Liberty Financial, that is really just backed by dollars. That's the USD1, and that is one-to-one with is a digital dollar basically on the system. So that's fairly stable. But I find it interesting. I've been watching what they're doing, and hey, if you've got computers and you've got servers, why not? You're going to make money no matter who wins or loses in the transaction because you're not the one playing the up or down game. You're just the validation guy. And it's brilliant on their part.
Thank you. Now I have some understanding of that. And Juan, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going to make a statement and ask Bill Armour an important question and then have you and Will weigh in on it. But let me set the stage. As I understand it, keep it simple, Sam. We have a Fed note, which we call our US dollar, Federal Reserve note, money is debt, that as we progress through this reset, will be going away and we will no longer be using that. Okay, so and the dollar, that dollar, we're talking about the Fed note, will be going down for a host of reasons we've been discussing. Okay, and then we have the moves being made against gold and silver by the Fed, the central bank system. We have that at play. The way I look at it is this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Juan, then we'll go to Bill, we'll ask the question. So this one's going to go down while we have a parallel system in place, and we're going to replace that in a series of stages. Step one, a U.S. Treasury dollar versus the Fed note. As that goes down, this one gets born. It gets born by a major player per the Constitution, weights and measures, backed by what? Gold and silver, and perhaps other commodities. That'll strengthen as this one comes down. Thank goodness for that. 11 years of this madness, and now real constitutional God's money being restored, thanks to President Trump and many others, backed by gold and silver. So if these are the oversimplistic mechanics at play, it would be a fair statement to say at some point we'll be operating in a treasury-backed dollar that's backed by sound money, has the faith and credit that it once had 100 years ago. Then that moves into a stable coin, goes into a QFS system in our decentralized private wallets with almost no need for banking, with giving us the sovereignty of currency and thus as individuals to some extent. If that's a fairly accurate 40,000-foot view, layman's view on this, gold and silver is very, very important. You mentioned before by some metrics and by some documents you've been looking at in your own study, Juan, where gold and silver are potentially going. So let's go over the bill. Where do you stand on this bill, especially with the banks playing the games they're playing, forced against the wall come the end of March, which Will Barney has talked with us about in previous broadcasts about these contracts coming due? What are they going to do? They have to go back to the Fed window, drive that Fed note down. They'll make these are the teeter-totter that's taking place. What do you see going on in the gold and silver world, Bill? And what would your forecasts be short and mid and long term for the metals and anything else you'd like to weigh in on? I think this is a very important subject because it will be, by and large, how we restore sound money with the usage of both tangible gold, silver, and perhaps other commodities later.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I would say is, first off, we can just look at what just happened because, as evidence that, banks are in trouble, is we saw Shanghai and we saw COMEX at the same time. And they often those markets work in tandem, somewhat. There's some delay there and some difference, but they came in tandem at the exact same moment, the exact same time. We saw a massive selling. In the US, it was paper selling. In China and Shanghai,
Mm.
a lot of Eastern Europe, they were or Eastern Asia, excuse me, they were doing what's called, and this will come out later, but it's called spoofing, which is where they put a massive sell order out. And so people look around and they see, oh my gosh, they're selling a tremendous amount of silver. And so other people will try to front run that because this is a huge order. And so they put out like they're selling a bunch, people front run that, so the price comes down. The US does the same thing with a lot of the Fed Reserve sort of puppet banks there. They sell. And so you have all of this, the silver price drops precipitously, and then Shanghai pulls back. They don't actually sell the silver at all, and then they continue to gobble up the silver. That's one of the reasons we're seeing this huge price difference right now between the US silver price and China, is they are consuming silver like no one's business. They're focused on adding to their silver supply. And on the US side, when you talk about like spot price or COMEX price, they're concerned about getting those contracts down to lower their losses, so to speak. So, and Juan made a great point earlier that the price of silver on the street, we're talking, $100, $110, where you see these big drops in the paper markets, and that's fine. In the meantime, if you were watching it, like every second of every day, you might get heart palpitations the way things are going. But understand that all this is it is kind of the death knells, I would say, of this of what silver is doing to the banking industry as a whole. So this is kind of a normal. It's almost like if it were Star Wars, this would be The Empire Strikes Back. And obviously, long term, this doesn't accomplish anything except delay the inevitable, I would say. But so the inevitable being kind of the answer to your question there is, where is gold and silver going? So when you talk about the revaluation of gold, we're talking in the neighborhood of 20,000. I would see that happening sooner rather than later, and therefore my understanding and projections on gold would be, towards that direction. Until that happens, we could see 6,500, 8,000, etc. So doubling 50, 200% in the next year. Silver, we can continue to see the same trajectory. And again, I just want to reiterate, this is not, because people will probably tell you on mainstream media that this is just, well, silver got really high, it had to come down a little bit. Not at all. That had nothing to do with the natural price movement. That had everything to do with price manipulation, that coming down from the 120 range. So understand that at this point, people have the ability, if they're able to get physical silver, to get it at a tremendous discount of where it should be, and understanding that, again, the banks will reap what they've sown here. And so I think that this presents a really incredible opportunity, particularly for silver. Obviously, gold has a lot to do as well, but particularly for silver, if people can get it, it gives them a great opportunity to have something that is going to be very valuable in the very, very near term.
Thank you. Two quick points I want to make. One, of course, I refer back to the Q drops back in the day. I'm paraphrasing, gold or metals or whatever it stated would expose or bring down the Fed. We're beginning to see the stages of that, and thank goodness for that. Second quick comment, you alluded to the mainstream media on the financial channels. I think our audience probably doesn't need me to remind them of that, but turn that off. If you want to muddy up your thought process, if you want to take an already complicated situation, as Juan has walked us through, that we're transitioning through and into over these years, and you want to muddy up your space, watch some MSM. Turn it off. Forget about that. They have their own vested interest. They're part of the problem, as far as I'm concerned, by and large. I would like to have Juan and/or Will weigh in. You mentioned, Bill, you mentioned China. China is widely known for doing things that are highly in their interest and sometimes at the detriment of other countries, like stealing technology and, of course, our rat rhinos giving it to them over the years. That's a different subject. But what we'll go with Bill, and then we'll have Juan cap this off. China. What are they doing right now? I know that, as I understand, they locked the doors, if you will, won't let any of this silver out. What is China doing regarding this price points and metals itself, namely silver? We'll go with Will, and then Juan and Bill. You can cap it off if you choose. Go ahead, Bill. Will and Bill. Too close. Get
China's
my Wills
playing
and
the
Bills
game.
right. Will Barney.
They're playing the game
How are they
right
playing
now.
the
They've
game?
been playing the game for some time. Bill talked about the spoofing. They've been doing that over and over.
Mhm.
They're buying up everything they can physically get their hands on. I got a report out of Switzerland today. Bullion dealers are out of silver. They don't have any silver of any kind. And the
Right.
gold, they're down to just 500-gram bars is all that's left. That's even gone. It's really crazy what's happening inventory wise. When they crashed the
Mhm.
market last Friday, we saw an absolute drain of anything that was physical. People started buying at epic levels because they knew this was fake, right? They knew this wasn't anything to do with physical metals at all. So it isn't just China that's buying up everything they can get their
Mhm.
hands on. Yeah, JP Morgan Chase, they dumped all their futures at $73 that day.
Wow.
And then they started buying everything they could grab their hands on. Okay.
At
So,
exact
so,
bottom.
so there's a lot of
That
weird
cannot
stuff going on
happen.
here. And it's even happening right now. Before we started this call, I took a look at the silver price just to take a look. It was $89. Right now it's 76. It's
Ooh.
dropped $13 in the last 2 hours.
How
on the
much
spot
longer
price.
can we?
That,
We're gonna.
that tells you that
Go ahead.
paper price is becoming irrelevant when it comes to actual inventory of silver. There's such a
Mhm.
separation between paper and physical delivery. You know, it used to be it was $8 spread, $10 spread, $12 throughout January. We went to $16 spread. Friday and Saturday it was $20. Right? So that just tells you the gap is widening and everybody's starting to say, you know what? Physical is the only thing that's real. It's the only thing left that's real. But you can bet that China will play the game as much as they have to because they're trying to get a hold of all the silver they can get as well. And it isn't just China doing this. Look at the industrial users, Apple, Samsung, LG, anybody that's
Yes.
doing large scale electronics. They're buying anything they can get their hands on right now because they're concerned about supply to keep their factories running. So physical accessibility to silver is shrinking very fast and it's drying up. And this means we're probably going to have a reckoning coming within weeks, if not sooner, when the reality of that sets in. The reason I mentioned March before is because there's a lot of futures contracts that are coming due in March.
Yes.
And they want all the people that are going long to state their position. Are they going to stand for delivery? Or are they going to roll their contract or sell out or whatever they're going to do? In the past, everybody playing the paper game, they just made their money and rolled to another contract. They didn't care about physical delivery. But now you have 300 million ounces that have already intended they're going to stand for delivery in March. Where's that coming from? Who's going to provide it?
Right.
So there's a tsunami coming. It's going to be very interesting to watch.
Mhm. Quick question to Will and Bill, and then we're going to open up the airways for Juan. Quick question, quick answer. To the best of your knowledge, it's a crystal ball question, perhaps, but you gentlemen will know better than I. How much longer do you anticipate? We'll go to Bill and then Will. How much longer do you anticipate these massive moves? You just said 89 to 76 while we're chatting here for the last hour or so. How many more months or what duration can we expect these massive moves, roller coaster swings up and or down, to continue? Bill?
Yeah, well, if you're including up, then probably a while. This, I mean, we're still talking. It's an interesting point to make here, and I'm not trying to discount the fact that there was not natural price discovery of it coming back down. That was obviously fixed, but we're still up from January 1st. So it's still moving, even though it swung up and then swung back down. It's still up from in the last 30 days, even with this big drop here. Now, with that said, over the foreseeable future, we may see these swings. The swing right now, granted, it's after hours, and this is a spot market, so the trading is pretty low, so the spreads get really really wide. So I imagine it'll
Hmm.
tighten up, into the morning tomorrow, and these swings will get a little less. But I would say we're kind of in a fight for the next week or two, and then it starts to again they start to close these positions at lower. These future contracts, and they accumulate. Even just kind of harkening back to your China question, this is all just an accumulation event for them. This is the perfect storm, and that's why they were happy to partner with, in a lot of ways, banks in the United States, because the end goal for them is to acquire more physical silver. They don't really care what the paper price does, because they're not going to use that. It's an irrelevant number to them. And so they were happy to work alongside, and the Shanghai market and the United States market, were in tandem there, in perfect unison, which again is indicative of them working together on that. And so this is China's objective here, is to accumulate physical silver irregardless of other circumstances. And moving forward, I think we'll see this until these positions close, until, I mean, we're talking about, again, we've mentioned this in the past, we're talking about bank failure as the alternative. So the Fed Reserve is going to do everything it can in terms of, money creation out of thin air to prolong this system. So, I mean, it's an enemy there with effectively infinite wealth. But at some point, and Will, I think, put this brilliantly, at some point people start to realize that the paper price is irrelevant, and that was the first thing we saw with backwardation a while back. We're seeing it again today with backwardation again, and on and off we've been seeing this, but there's this detachment from reality, and at some point people stop caring whatsoever about the paper price. It becomes a useless number, and that's probably where we're heading in the next several weeks.
Thank you. Will, any quick comment before we go to Juan?
Just one comment about what occurred today. Marco Rubio brings
Mhm.
together 50 allied nations to do a minerals conference to talk about supply chain. Okay. And the
Wow.
opening speech was J.D. Vance. And what he talked about was we need to institute price floors. Why?
Yeah.
Because if minerals are being flooded on the market at prices that are lower than we can mine them ourselves, we'll never have a
Mhm.
mining project. The miners will not be in business. Now, I've talked to some of the mining companies. They want to see $300 silver, so it's economical for them to actually be in the mining business for silver. Right now,
Right.
silver is a
Wow.
byproduct. They're going after copper, gold, something else, and it's a byproduct they're getting out of refining. But they're not specifically targeting it. But if the price is sufficient, and if Marco Rubio is able to get all these nations to talk about a price floor that's reasonable for silver, the U.S. can get back in the mining game, and we can start putting our own economic security and technological security back underneath us by having our own mining operations. But we can't do it if cheap silver's flooding the market, destroying the mining operations. So we need the miners to get back in the game. We need to be getting it out of the ground because high tech needs it. And we're going to need a price to do that. And now they're talking price floor. So let's watch what the government does, because that could have a major movement on what's going to happen long term, particularly throughout the rest of 26. And I'll leave it with Juan to
Thank
wrap that up.
you. Thank you. Thank you, Will and Bill. Go ahead, Juan. Any comments on all the China or any aspect of what you've been listening
I
to?
was thinking about this a minute ago. I get these random thoughts. And so several years ago, I had to use someone that had very advanced AI products, and had created, for marketing purposes, millions and millions of accounts that were commenting and stuff all over the world, and in bot locations and all that. And this was, kind of it was a business contact. It wasn't like he was my best buddy in the world. But at a certain point, he's telling me that about his AI girlfriends. And so he had created 3 AI girlfriends and for different things. So he's all excited about this. And they do this and they say that and blah, blah, blah. At the same time, it just so happened that I knew his wife from something else before I ever knew him. And she picks up the phone and calls me and says, that she's getting ready to leave him and she knows I have some business with him and she doesn't want it to affect our business, but she's leaving. And I'm like, okay. And she adds in, he's more interested in his girlfriends online than he is in me. Well, the girlfriends online were the AIs. That's paper, silver. It's
There you go.
not real. Okay,
I was
you
wondering where
better
you were
stick
going
with
with
the
that.
real. I was just clicking through my mind,
Good
because
advice.
that's how real the paper silver is. Totally unreal. It looks beautiful. It's great. You can trade with it. You can show all your friends. You can brag on it. When it comes to
Oh,
delivery,
yeah.
he's not climbing in
Good luck.
bed with the paper imagery and the reality when she left him. His brain was focused in the wrong place. I think she was probably ultimately right to draw the line in the stand. He wasn't paying attention to her. You better pay attention. Physical silver's the whole game.
Yeah,
Physical gold,
that's right.
and everything else is a happy thought illusion with no connection to reality. Please get your brain going in the right direction right now.
Yeah. Great story. Brings it home pretty much right there.
And by the way, just
You
just so
know,
you know, just as an aside, real quick, John, I'm dealing right now with folks in several major banking communities across the globe. Um, there was clear indications prior to what happened last Friday that something was coming. Now, I didn't want to cry wolf in a crowded theater, but I was aware there would be some manipulations and that, at the very least, everybody be paced or measured or whatever, understand. But the pressure upward for silver is absolutely as solid as it gets because of industrial demand,
mhm,
extremely low production numbers from the mining community because they're not focusing on silver, they're focusing on other metals. It's just a byproduct of other mining. The upward pressure for silver, and I told your audience this the other day, it's out there somewhere around 280 to 300 for a whole bunch of reasons, both from the consuming industrial side and from the producing mining side. The reason they need something approaching, I think a floor for silver, probably a realistic negotiated floor, is going to be down there somewhere around 240 for a bunch of reasons. And that's a floor. That's not the price. That's that anybody that's selling less than that, everybody's got to give them the side eye. It means everybody has to get competitive that comes in the market. Um, it may be an entry position. They raise that floor at some point. 300 is not unreasonable either. Um, and the companies that can produce for less than that, then they're geniuses. Go make a buck. But you need to encourage mining to come in and stay. And right now, the numbers that they're at on the U.S. side, 280 is the number. And I said that publicly for the big producers to decide, okay, let's go for it. I think if they see the upward direction of silver as it gets past 240, 260, and looks like it's going to stay stable there, they're diving in because they know it's still got to go higher. It's and demand for silver in the U.S. and by the way, right here in Japan continues to grow with technology. Just the march of technological advance across the world, the use of energy increases the need for silver. It's a natural outgrowth of that. And there's no other metal that replaces silver, that competes with silver. There isn't a replacement metal out there or anything on the horizon for the functions that silver provides within connectivity in a electrons flowing for various things that technology uses. So the demand is increasing just within an industrial component, an advance of technology, let alone production returning to America and the need for silver inside America, the tariffs to block outside silver at of prices that we can't compete with from a labor component, et cetera. So silver has huge pressure up. Any pressure down is almost non-existent in a real world. You don't believe me? I got a guy that's got AI girlfriends in the silver market that you would probably just love.
Hey, let's go to Bill Armour real quickly here. With countries struggling to get physical silver, as Will Barney brought to our attention, how about you? Are you having difficulty getting silver to the public?
Yeah, great question. No, so at this point, absolutely not. Again, and I think we've talked offline about this, but we have been proactive in the sense that we understood that it's practice what you preach. We believe that there would be a silver shortage, so obviously making sure supply lines were strong, inventory was strong. So at this point, nothing we're running into, nothing on the horizon where we're having an issue with procuring physical silver. But I do know, between friends here, that I do absolutely know there are companies out there where it is a struggle, and one, where they're reaching and trying to buy metals off of us, and obviously at a discount so that they can sell them
Wow.
to clients, and not something we're interested in. We prepared. It's kind of like the person that has batteries, bullets, etc. When the tsunami hits. So we have our survivor supplies, and if people forgot theirs, that's on them.
Well, this is a perfect storm. I mean, this is almost a once in a lifetime event when you listen to all the data points that we've been discussing, particularly in regards to precious metals, namely silver, but gold as well. This is an absolute perfect storm for those that have the ability to hedge against the elements that we've identified here by using both gold and namely silver. So buy gold, buy silver, buy now. I'd like to, unless there's any subject that any of our three guests would like to bring up, if you do, bring it up at this point. If not, I've got sort of a stage I'd like to set, connecting a lot of the dots on everything we've all been learning, including myself on this very program in the last year, and summarize that as a final question to the panel. Before I do that, would anyone like to raise a subject that hasn't been raised yet regarding the economic related matters? All right. If not, then I will proceed. The show's about 2 hours in right now, so it's a good point to wrap up. Bear with me. Give me the airwaves for a moment. I've sort of got some notes in front of me to bring the bullet points together. Has Juan left us? Maybe my producer can talk with me in my ear. All right. Well, we're waiting for a response. Let me lay this down. We have a smattering of dots to connect that has been dripped on to the American people over the course of, say, the last year or so, and very much so on this very program. And here are some of them. With all the president has told us concerning the Federal Reserve, we see a new chairman being appointed. We're told central casting by the president himself in a public tweet or a truth post. So I find that interesting. Maybe Will would like to comment on that aspect in a moment. But what we see here is the president is telling us, hey, the Federal Reserve, not good. Big problems. Powell, no good. Big problems. We're reconstructing buildings. We're making a move to a Treasury-backed dollar. We have the External Revenue Service. These are all the darts I'm throwing at the board. Hundreds of billions coming in just this year, last year. We have $20 trillion, we're told, invested from foreign countries and corporations doing business back on our soil. 20 trillion is a lot of money over X amount of years. We have we're probably the largest producer of oil and gas, and we've got a stake now in some of the Venezuelan oil. So we have oil and gas production with the chains taken off them finally. Thank you, President Trump, and taken off responsibly, I might add. We have all of these things. A few more darts to throw at the board, folks. Elon Musk's statements. Soon, I'm paraphrasing, but it could almost be a quote. Soon, you will not have to save money anymore. I'll go on. Elon Musk has also said, as a follow-up to that paraphrase, a little further down the line, you won't have to work. Tuck all these dots away for a moment, folks. I'm leading us to the 40,000-foot view question. So we have all these pieces out there. We're told by the president we're going to receive, with some guidelines and restrictions, we're all waiting to find out. He's basically pledged the $2,000 check to the American people, certain criteria connected to that, before the end of this year. Scott Bessent is on the record stating greatest tax relief and tax returns ever in the history of America coming our way. We've learned about the Sovereign Wealth Fund, which Juan O'Savin touched on earlier in this broadcast. We've discussed it on this broadcast. Then we have credit card interest now capped out at 10%, I think, for a year. I think there'll be a lot more to follow. That's the beginning. Remember, everything's a slow rollout. But that's a big move against the banks. Well, they can't be happy about that, but we the people are. We see a common thing here, don't we? Then we have the discussion in the public square by the president and his administration concerning corporations buying up homes when homes are intended to be part of the American dream, where people have to have the ability to get a proper and fair way to own a home in America. That brings us to the mortgage fraud and the $38 trillion federal debt at usdebtclock.org. We're learning from Elon Musk and others that lion's share of that debt will end up back on the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve and not on the U.S. government's bank statement, if you will. So then we have the 5 central banks that we've been discussing in this very broadcast scrambling because they're finally on the opposite end of the trade that they've manipulated for decades, controlling God's money of gold and silver. Now those chains are coming off, and we spend plenty of time discussing that in this broadcast. So we've come to learn about the birth certificate trading off of our life's energy and all the taxes and Federal Reserve moves that have proven to be fraudulent and unconstitutional against our life's energy. Let's see where else I can throw at the dartboard before I close this out with Will and Bill answering this question. We've got the crypto capital of the world, Trump is saying we're going to be. And we spent some fair amount of time discussing crypto here. So I can go on with a whole lot more darts to throw at the board. But folks, this in part is the global financial reset. This and it is a war against the Federal Reserve, central bank, IMF, BIS, the whole system, the currency itself, the Federal Reserve note. Then we're told we'll have a massive celebration, the 250th year, but it's far beyond that, on July 4th. So having said all that, we'll go with, start off with Bill. We'll close out with Will. What is the big picture that you see taking place that you'd like to summarize for your children and grandchildren, for those listening to this broadcast, so we understand great changes underway? The Bible speaks of a jubilee. We have that on the docket. Looks to me like we may be a debt-free nation. We may be debt-free individuals. We will be sovereigns as God intended, wholly and completely, mind, body, spirit, and financial. So am I crazy in loosely connecting those dots as we head back to God's money, which is what the Constitution says, gold and silver? Where are we at here? Well, let me put this into question. Are we going to be debt-free, freed from the slavery system in control, prosperous, and abundance versus scarcity. And again, we're in a spiritual battle between good and evil. God always wins. We're on God's side. This is God's money. This is God's plan. Bill Armour, what would you like to say about all this to your
Yeah,
children? You don't have grandchildren yet. You've got youngins.
yeah, yeah.
But
Uh,
to those that you care about and our fellow citizens, paint the picture for everybody. What's happening? Because there's a lot
yeah,
of turmoil we're going through right now, and a lot of shit that's going to hit the fan soon. As one is, we're not out of the woods on multiple
yeah.
fronts, but God wins, and we're entering to golden age. Take it away, Bill Armour.
Yeah, I would say that a lot of the stuff that people have come to expect as normal is not normal. The Jubilee you mentioned biblically, it was a period that would happen about every 7 years when the slaves would be free, debt would be erased, etc. And that was to prevent this sort of accumulation of slaves, of debt, etc. That would eventually lock people into themselves, their kids' kids, etc. into the system. That's why it was designed. And that is what all Americans have grown up with and understood for their entire lives. So what is changing? And you added a lot of dots there. Most of those dots are symptoms of a sickness, right? It's like if you've got the flu, maybe you've got a fever, you've got a runny nose, you've got all those are all symptoms of the sickness. And the sickness is that it starts with that debt slavery, but that debt slavery encompasses into a moral slavery, many different things, because people are pushed into this, and because they have to compete in such a way. There is plenty, and plenty is available to everyone, but as we have come to what we've come to expect is normal is not normal, and that is what's changing. The chains are breaking. We're moving to a financial freedom, but also a spiritual freedom, a moral freedom, and all of that starts here with the elimination of the bondage, which has been the Federal Reserve and the debt slavery that includes. So we are at a point here where we're going to run into. I think anytime you back a dog into a cage, into a corner rather, they're going to bite. And I think that we've still got some of that in front of us, but that shouldn't scare anyone. That should really encourage and embolden everyone that if they are getting desperate, if we're seeing things like we are with the silver market, this is indicative of we're getting close to the finish line, and the death knells are approaching. So what I would say to anyone that is hearing this and listening is understand that we may still see a little bit of difficulty and probably a lot of difficulty, but we are so close to fundamentally reshaping the world and our country as we have known in our entire lives.
So well said. Thank you, Bill. You know, we're gonna have some fun with this terminology for a moment, but to our audience, you don't want the AI girl. The AI girl's not going to get the job fully done. So you don't want the paper proxy, and you don't want to be misled, because there's as many scams in the metals business as there are in the crypto world. So Bill is my source. Bill, what's the best way for people to reach you directly for guidance, for consult, and for assistance for this unprecedented time to get into both gold and silver? And I would offer this up. You can't time the markets, especially with what's going on now. Just get into the right place. You know it's the right place. We've learned that from Juan, from Will, from Bill, from all the information we've been sharing. What's the best way for people to reach you to discuss these very matters and not get the AI girl, but get the actual girl?
Yeah, best way to get me is that phone number you're seeing on the screen right now. That's 310-407-0239. That is my direct line. That comes straight to me. If I don't answer, it's because it's not going to an answering service. It's going directly to my voicemail box, and I will call any single person that reaches out, and you're going to get my personal attention on any of this. That means that we're going to go through your situation. We're going to understand how you're set up and what we can do to position yourself best. I was talking with a lady that came through you, John, just the other day, and we talked a lot about how gold and silver really functionally what it is it's a vehicle here, and it's getting us from point A to point B, getting us through this crazy, crazy time we find ourselves in. And that's its objective, not necessarily to make you, a millionaire overnight or anything like that, or 10x your money. I mean, sure, obviously with the way metals are performing, it certainly can do that for you. But what it is it is functionally a vehicle to get you across this chasm that is in front of us between where we are now and where we're going to be. And where we're going to be is beautiful. We just want to make sure that you're not getting beat up on the way there. And so reach out to that number that you're seeing on the screen there, 310-407-0239. And I would love to have a discussion and see how we can make that process as seamless as possible for you.
Thank you. And you know what? That dovetails perfectly. See, I'm action oriented, and those that follow me know that saving America and protecting your wealth through this reset is not a spectator sport. It requires action. As far as the economic side goes, there's an action item for you. You can also visit wealthcoachuniversity.com for free and view my 10 modules of how to GOOTS, get out of the system during this transition, which is the name of the show, Global Financial Reset. Surviving and Thriving the Transition. Thank you, Bill. Will Barney, patiently waiting. First off, I want to thank Juan O'Savin very much. Obviously, he lost internet connection for having weighed in and stuck around and joined the panel. It's always nice when my guests can chime in with Juan O'Savin as well. So thank you, Juan, for being here and sharing with us not only some humor with the AI girl. I'm going to run with that one for a while, but also your great insights. And for those that don't know, I didn't have my normal introduction for Juan. Juan's been serving this nation, much of it clandestinely, since the time of Ronald Reagan, and was one of the gentlemen that helped take down that Russian ruble under the Reagan administration, which ended the Soviet Union. The man knows a thing or two about currency. Folks listening to this broadcast, you got three professionals from banking, from precious metals, and Juan from the big picture of everything. I hope you share this show far and wide and take some action steps for those that have the ability to get into gold and silver. So, Will, I threw a lot of stuff at that dartboard to bring your attention back to that. What's your message to perhaps your children and or grandchildren and everyone listening to this broadcast? Because it's dark, it's dangerous. We're not out of the woods just yet, but we're going to win this. We're going to be victorious. What are your words of wisdom and your analysis and any closing comments from you, Will Barney?
Well, we're watching the unfolding of really all that many of us have looked for many years, which is to regain our sovereignty, to regain our freedom, to regain our financial liberty, if you will, because the world's been enslaved, indebted at epic levels. Mm-hmm. People talk about the U.S. debt, 38 trillion, but China's even higher. You're looking at 50 T, okay? Wow. So there's a lot of problems here going on. And what's interesting is China just printed a bunch of yuan, not to pump into their economy. It's just to buy metals. And then what you saw today should be a real clear indication that we're starting to get into I don't want to call it a Cold War for minerals, but I don't know what else you might call this, when the United States pulls together 50 of its allies and says, we need to secure a supply chain of minerals. And if you look at the strategic mineral list, guess what's at the top of the list? Silver. Very first one mentioned. Yep. Okay. So this means that the Trump presidency is trying to recapture what could be economic and security, and also national security from a defense standpoint, but also technology security. He wants us to be not only the technical capital of the world, but he wants us to also be the crypto capital of the world, because he realized we're in a race. We found ourselves behind, and we're having to do some things now to try to catch up. And ultimately, when they talk about price floors, this is about trying to make it economical for our businesses to mine, to get minerals out of the ground, to provide them. Today was the mineral conference. Yesterday, they announced a $12 billion mineral vault, as they call it, the vault, right? where they're going to secure a certain amount of minerals to make sure that none of these businesses are falling flat. This is an indication that this administration is getting very proactive in securing the future of America, whether it be the sovereign wealth fund and all the other things that have been done over the last 12 months. Each of the, and you laid them out very well, John, but each of these is a step by step by step progression to what ultimately is going to be a new currency backed by the country itself and the assets of that country. And we're going to get away from fiat. When we see gold and silver making epic moves, it's not that an ounce of silver is more than an ounce of silver, or an ounce of gold is more than an ounce of gold. It means the Federal Reserve note is collapsing against those numbers when they go up. Okay. But it kind of needs to. We need to balance this out. Donald Trump has said he wants a weaker dollar. Why? Because if we're going to become an industrialized nation again, if we're going to make stuff again and actually sell it, we need to have a price that the rest of the world can afford. So if our dollar's a little weaker, the rest of the world can actually afford to buy from us. And that's what he's trying to do, is secure that economic engine. We've been a consumer nation for the last 30 years, almost exclusively consumer nation. Now he's trying to turn us into an industrial nation. Why? Because when you consume, your money goes one direction, it's out the door. But when you make stuff, money comes back in, right? So he's trying to balance the scales, and it's not going to be balanced overnight. It's going to take months to work this out. We're going to be years, perhaps, building this. In the last 30 years, we lost 100,000 factories across America. Think about it. We've got a ways to go. The cool thing is he has secured $18 trillion of investment to help rebuild this infrastructure. And the beautiful thing about that is, as we rebuild it, we're rebuilding it with the latest and greatest in technology. It'll be way better than what we had before. But it is going to take a little time to build that out. So as you look at moves and strategic moves, particularly regarding the Fed, you mentioned Trump's announced a new Fed chairman. He will, if he doesn't kick out Powell any sooner, Powell's going to be there till the third week of May. Well, we're going to have to see how this plays out. But if we're not going to get Kevin Warsh until the third week of May, who knows what it's going to look like, Federal Reserve, their reputation, if there will be any left by the time we get to the third week of May after what's coming over the next weeks. I think this is strategic. The amazing thing is, for me, is Trump puts Powell in place during his first term. He's the one that actually appointed him. And Powell has done everything Trump said he would do. Be too little, too late. Right on cue. It's almost like central casting. And now we have another guy that's central casting. And his job is probably to finish the transition. Okay. And the cool thing is, if any of you looked at the history of Kevin Warsh, he's worked with Scott Bessent in the past. These guys know each other very well. Okay. Everything is lining up for a transition, but I think Juan laid this out really clearly. If we're not careful, our transition turns into a disaster that's very hard to recover from, and nobody wants that. So we're having to do this. This is actually very carefully calculated. Very carefully. It's going to be step by step by step. We'll get the Clarity Act passed to secure blockchain. That'll be one of the steps in the process. And you'll see metals move up. Gold and silver will gain ground. I want to see silver get higher because I want miners to be able to mine it. I want us to be able to be in the silver game again as a country. So I'd like to see that price higher. It's already dramatically too low ratio-wise to gold, so it's got somewhere to move. Let's get it into a ratio where miners can mine it, and let's provide for our technological future coming down the road. And so personally, as we look towards the end of 26, it may not be a stretch to think we're hitting 8,000 gold. We're hitting $400-500 silver. That may not be a stretch. We'll have to see how this plays out. But right now, everybody's buying up every ounce of silver they can get their hands on that's physical. That means paper is going to completely obliterate itself, as we discussed earlier. And all of this should be good news to you. It's not, I don't want anybody to be caught up in a fear storm about all this. What we've documented tonight is all about retaking our country. It's about getting it back, getting freedom back. When we switch to an asset-backed currency, that means no more debt. That means no more debt. And then there's going to be this examination of the debt that we have. If you look at all the money loaned by the Federal Reserve to the government, did the Federal Reserve put up any gold? Did they put up any silver? Did they put up any assets in the background for that money they lend? Trillions of dollars, 38 trillion of total. If that money was created with a mouse click, is it fair that you ask the American people to pay it back with blood, sweat, and tears of their jobs every day? No, it's fraud. It's fraud. So I'm not concerned about what's going to happen with the national debt. That isn't even a concern of mine. I think we're going to have a resolution to that. I'll just put it that way. What the concern is that all of us as individuals do what we can to prepare ourselves to get through what is going to be a little bumpy, because you don't do this transition without some bumps. It's going to be a little bumpy. You're going to see it, gyrations in the market, particularly with the metals over the next weeks. And that's just part of the process. But if you prepared yourself, if you've got some assets there, I used to say gold and silver are terrible earners. It's the last thing you want to do to earn you money, but it's the best thing you can do if you're trying to hold on to it. Okay. And it just so happens the last year, 2 years, actually, if you go back 24 months, gold and silver have outperformed anything we've ever seen from them for the last 100 years. So that is like beyond normal. And when you see beyond normal, as Bill said earlier, it's about manipulation, and it's about massive correction stemming from manipulation, which ultimately is stemmed from corruption. So I really think as a nation, we should be more excited today than we have ever been about how close we are to retaking all of it back, to getting it back and being free. And I really think by the time we hit the 4th of July, we will have something wonderful to absolutely celebrate, and we'll be on our way to a recovery.
Thank you very much, Will, and so well said. I'm glad we got all that on the record. Stay right there, please, Will. I've got to cover something with you. Let's go full screen for one moment with Bill Armour. Will Barney just mentioned the importance of this period of time. Can we go to my producer? Thank you. That's what I meant, double panel. Thank you. Stay right there, Will, please. I'll be right back. What I wanted to do is close out with Bill here. Will just spoke about this transition period. I said many great things in there that really encapsulated things just so well. To that point, I'm speaking to two audiences right now. The audience that has assets to protect, well, I think you know what to do. Give Bill a call at 310-407-0239 and have a private personal consult with Bill so you can make an informed decision and do the right thing at the right time. For those of you listening, which is probably the lion's share of America, that doesn't have two nickels to rub together, and believe me, I've been there. I've bounced over zeros many times in my career. Believe me, these shows are important for you to follow because everything that's being developed that Will just walked us through, and Juan and Bill in this episode, takes time. But we know we're getting to a point where there's a sovereign wealth fund, where funds are coming back to us that have been stolen. There's multiple things we've discussed on the repatriation of wealth, and every legal, tax-paying, Social Security, true legal American citizen, you have some money. you have wealth and it's coming to you. So get all the education about the world we're in now, whether you've got money to invest in silver or gold to hedge and protect against these elements. Still follow this broadcast because you will at some point, and it's important to understand the transition. Now, hopefully, we've reached value to everyone listening. Bill, last closing comment, and I'm going to sign you off and thank you for your time. It's been an extended broadcast. Again, those with assets to protect, 310-407-0239, straight to Bill Armour. This is the man that I do my business with, and I would recommend you to give Bill a call. Bill, any closing statements before I bring Will back in to wrap up the show?
Yeah, I'll just echo what you did just at the very tail end there, which is, if you are, struggling, and I talk to a lot of people that are, saying, Bill, I am struggling, and they really, how long will this last? And what I can say to you is this: a lot of this is not your fault. A lot of this is the system was designed, it was created to take money away from you and put it in the pockets of other people. And so finally, we are going to get things right, and you are going to be vindicated and justified here in this. And so I just echo that sentiment that even if you're listening to this and say, well, I can't buy metals right now, your time is coming.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Bill Armour, for this extended broadcast. And to our audience, I'm sort of flying by the seat of my pants. I'm usually pretty scripted in these shows, but we've had a very dynamic show. Thanks to Juan O'Savin for joining us. And thank you, Bill Armour. We'll see you in 2 more weeks right back here at the GFR. Folks, give Bill a call. Take good care of you. Tell him mention my name. Let's go back to Will Barney for a moment. To my producer, what I'd like you to do, I failed to acknowledge this early on, Will, and I certainly want to do it right now. To our producer, let's put up those 3 images. Will Barney, we launched at JMC Broadcasting something we call Patriot Q&A Hour. It's for premium members. To learn about that, it's just $9.99 a month. There's a lot of benefits in there. You can visit jmcbroadcasting.com, click on premium and learn. But what I want to indicate, what you're looking at are screenshots. Will launched our premier Patriot Q&A Hour. 50% of our members attended. It was very successful. This is all brand new. I want to thank you, Will, for lending that hour of your time to my members and our audience. What it is, Will is on screen. I'm sort of a host, and you get to ask your questions for a solid hour of our Patriot Power guests. And Will did such a phenomenal job, as I knew he would. And I want to thank you, Will, for doing that. And folks, providing Will accepts my invitation, we'd like to have Will back a little bit later on in this battle, perhaps around July or so, when things have changed. Have him back into the Patriot Q&A Hour. So thank you, Will, for doing that.
The Q&A is awesome. It was fantastic,
Yeah.
and you had very good questions coming from your audience. Is brilliant. These people are very forward thinking. I would say for the times we're in, they grasped this early on, and there were some challenging questions. I think you've got some other really great guests coming towards the end of February. So make sure you tune in, guys. This is specialized content you probably won't get anywhere else, with incredible people. I know you've got Jaco on the lineup and a few others that they're going to be coming in. What an incredible opportunity. And I think it's worth the time and a little bit of money to go ahead and sign up for the service and make sure you get a hold of that information, because these guys are incredible.
Well, thank you. And you're one of those incredible guys. And we didn't get a chance in this episode because we were fortunate enough to have as much time with Juan joining us. But EnochGS.com, folks, visit this site. Give us the elevator pitch of what you're doing. And each time when you come on every other week, let's spend 5 minutes, get some updates, further inform the public about what you're doing, because it's going to play a very big role for humanity. Give us the elevator pitch before we sign you off, sir.
Well, we're all about projects. Enoch Global Services is about launching humanitarian projects across the world, and we're actually building a digital platform. It's a private cloud system. It's a major data center project to allow all the software and hardware facilities to launch and maintain projects for many years in the future. We hope to be able to launch thousands of projects per year when we get to full scale. Over the next 50 years. We hope it never turns off. And the idea is to take some of this wealth that's coming out from this wealth transfer that's taking place, and it's coming from good people like yourselves who have been planning for this. You're going to be the money behind this. We're just trying to give you tools and that you can utilize to be effective to actually get that done. We're building reporting into the system for projects that need to have reporting back to the regulatory agencies. We think that some of that reporting is going to the Treasury, from what we understand at the present moment. So we're building that in, and that way you've got assurance that your reports are in on time. You don't get any missed draws. Your draws come right on schedule the way you planned them when you go to your appointment and receive your funds. So the whole idea is to bring all the support that we can for projects and to make this a wonderful tool to allow you to be very effective with what you're doing. And we have a full set of services starting in the United States first. We're working out some kinks in the software. Once all that's kind of smoothed out, then we're moving into other countries very rapidly. So we do hope to be within a 10-year period of time into close to 100 countries with the same system to launch projects and make a difference in the local community. The interesting thing about how we do that is we do have projects that come in and do get funded. We do ask that they give forward, actually. I would say give back, but it's not a give back, it's a give forward to contribute a portion of their profits back to the foundation so the next project behind them gets funded. When we go to another nation, like if we go to Thailand, for instance, let's use that as an example. When we invest in Thailand, those 10% don't come back to America. They actually circulate in the trust we created right within Thailand, and it grows on a local level. So when we go into a country, it's about investing in that country, not pulling it out, and really helping those people. And we think that it's going to be a great program. It's going to be very effective to push humanitarian projects forward and really make a difference in the lives of people.
When you look up the words visionary and forward thinkers, you see Will Barney's picture. That's extraordinary. And I'll tell you what, you're finding a need for something that doesn't even exist, in our space today. That's going to be in such huge demand. And everyone listening to this broadcast will want to continue to learn more about this along the way. There are those already with the wealth that have humanitarian projects ready to go. There are those, the rest of us, and it's pretty much most of all of us, that will also be in that same position at some point in the near future. So thank you very much, Will Barney, for your contributions to my programming. And again, a great thank you for kicking off our premiere of the Patriot Q&A. Thank you, Will. Let's put up to my producer on the screen the image Will spoke about a moment ago. Michael Jaco joining us. And you're right, Michael Jaco is on the calendar, committed to the next Patriot Q&A. Same thing Will Barney did for us last month. We have Mike Jaco joining us, as you can see on the screen. Mark your calendars, Thursday, February 26th at 8 p.m. Eastern. You got to be a premium member. $9.99 is a fancy, expensive Starbucks coffee. Boy, you'll get a whole lot more for that each month, bringing a different Patriot Power guest to the platform. Plus, there's other benefits in the Patriot premium membership. Just go to my website and learn about that, jmcbroadcasting.com. So again, I want to thank Will Barney for premiering that for us. We'll sign you off here now, Will. We're going to go to a promo spot, and I'll be back with my closing comments.
Excellent.
Thank you,
Good
Will.
to be with you. Have a good night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Don't miss this month's live Patriot Q&A hour, as John Michael Chambers hosts our Patriot Power guest, retired Navy SEAL Special Ops CIA Michael Jaco. Get your questions answered. Mark your calendars. February 26, 2026, 8 p.m. Eastern Time sharp. Visit jmcbroadcasting.com and click on the Premium Portal Sign-Up tab. Enter your password and you're in. Not a JMC Broadcasting Premium member yet? You could be. Simply click on the Premium Portal Sign-Up tab. Enter your info, and that's it. John and Jaco. Looking forward to answering your questions for the solid hour. See you there. Where we go one, we go all.
All right. Well, I've got about 120 seconds left of some important announcements, so don't go anywhere. And thank you for staying with us. It's been an extended broadcast and well worth it. This one's for the record books, and we want to thank Wano Savin for spending the time with us from Tokyo this morning here in Asia, where I am as well. And also, it's just maybe I'll extend an invitation to Juan, perhaps to join us in March or April in the premium portal Q&A. I know you'd love to have be live with Juan in such a closed environment to get your questions answered from Juan O'Savin. And again, thank you, Juan, for joining us today in its broadcast. And on the subject of Juan O'Savin, be sure to join us later this month in February for our monthly broadcast called Eyes on Gitmo. Retired Brigadier General Blaine Holt, retired Lieutenant Colonel Marine Matt Meck, Juan's Chief of Staff. We also have I call it a fourth revolving seat. We've had Captain Pete Matasu join us. We may have a different military guest. I'm not sure. I'm not in charge of scheduling, but you don't want to miss it because Juan O'Savin is there as well. So that's our Eyes on Gitmo monthly panel. And boy, oh boy, that program is really going to pick up speed once we start broadcasting from Gitmo. But it's a great broadcast of which Juan is also a guest. Quick closing thing. We have a free subscription for those that aren't going to join us in the premium. Very valuable. Every Friday in your inbox, you'll receive our newsletter, JMC audio updates, me, very casual, audio only for about 30 minutes, giving you some drive-by news bites that you may have missed throughout the week and important announcements you won't hear anywhere else and some other perks. So you visit jmcbroadcasting.com, click on the upper right, free subscription. And just below that, you can click on premium subscription, which we see on the screen here. And there's a video describing what's in it and all the benefits available to you there in premium, which also, of course, the banner thing is the Premium Patriot Q&A hour once a month. We got off to a great start thanks to Will Barney. We got Mike Jaco joining us and many others, one each month. So joining us next week on the Global Financial Reset, returning guest John Dowling will be joining us next week to help us get us up to speed basically on what's taking place front and center from his lens. We look forward to John Dowling joining us. And also next week, a second guest joining us, introducing for the first time to the Global Financial Reset, Brandon Clark of TriadRetire.com. There it is, TriadRetire.com. Very, very good gentleman. He's a retirement planning specialist who's going to talk about tax-deferred income-producing assets, annuities, and a whole lot more. Brandon Clark, we look forward to your first appearance on the Global Financial Reset. Extended broadcast. If you're still with me, you must love me. I love you right back. This is John Michael Chambers speaking with what's left of his voice. Please stay safe. Remember, as Juan has warned us, we are not out of the woods yet. In fact, the most fierce battles in the currency and in our safety are still ahead. Pray, plan, and prepare. Keep your eye on the mountain. We're going to be victorious, and the golden age is upon us. Stay safe, everyone, and may God be with you.
The Global Financial Reset is happening right now. The opportunities through this transition remain for some time to come. Don't miss this unprecedented moment in history. But caution, identify the dangers through this transition and prevent fatal mistakes by being ill-advised or uninformed. Schedule your private wealth coach consult with John Michael Chambers on a Zoom screen meeting. The ability to meet with JMC is very limited. Learn more by visiting wealthcoachuniversity.com. Once prepared, schedule your consult with JMC. It's time to seize the opportunities and to goots. Yes, goots. Get out of the system. QFS, stablecoin, the US dollar, gold and silver, Fed IRS changes, income needs. Your personal situation will be addressed. It's time. This is a wealth coach consulting appointment for those with questions and/or assets to protect. John is not a financial advisor and does not give specific investment advice, nor does he sell any investments, insurance, or precious metals. Gain private access to John and his resource network. Schedule your consult today. wealthcoachuniversity.com.